Alright, I'm back for the third time or so, trying to pull off some English words. It's going to be a great video, this one, I can tell already. So, I'm going to differ a bit from, mixing up a bit from the last couple of videos I've done. This time I will talk about that there needs to be some sort of pro scene patches so that we got two separate systems where the pros have their own patch system where the small changes can be implemented, while there's the live server where different kind of patch works are being made. Of course, it shouldn't be too different from each other, but small things that needs to happen, because one champion might be meta in the live on live servers, but on the pro scene it's maybe a little different. And if you nerf this champion, it's totally unviable. Even if it wasn't viable from the start off, it's basically doomed in pro scene. And you could do it the other way around, where you might have a champion which is great in the pro scene but doesn't work on the live server, and you buff it because you want the percent rate to go up, the win percentage to go up, and then it basically makes it completely overpowered and totally ruins everything. And then another point is that when there's like the world championship, you need to be able, of the worlds, you need to be able to go in and create the most ideal meta. You want to make a meta and make it more simple for you to make the meta you want as a game designer. You don't want to be able to you don't want to restrain yourself by the fact that you know that this change also needs to be able to work on the live server and not just in competitive play, which is a completely different thing. But then there could be the naysayer who's going to say that, well, it could be two completely different games. And yes, it could be, but of course I wouldn't do it that way. I would basically, when in the off seasons and when the big changes are happening, I would implement the same kind of, if a champion is getting reworked, I would do that kind of thing where you implement it, but then be a bit more nitpicky with the kind of changes and have more staff, more people working closely with, and maybe have an ex-pros doing the patch, running through the beta stuff and helping them along and making the right calls, because then you can twist and turn it the right way and not just try to make up some of the small flaws you have in your system or in the patches that have gone along. And then you can finally make the meta more friendly to the pro scene, because it's so unfair for most of the players. And it basically, the game also gets very stale looking at as a spectator, because you know what they're gonna play, and you know there's only a certain amount of champion being viable, and I want more viable champions, but it's not possible when you have these kind of patches going along, and when you can't make the small changes to each specific champions to fit it to the pro scene. So, and that basically hinders the way the kind of champions you can play. Of course, there's certain kits that doesn't fit at all with it, but at the moment I'm just thinking like 20 champions is the max, and I want, like, from a spectator's view, I would like some more diversity, and I would like to see, because then you could have certain teams who are famous for something, and not just like, oh, they bring out like some ludicrous pick like Timo, and that's it. That's the most obscure pick ever for the last 2 years. When if you had a much more diverse champion pool going on and flowing around in the pro scene, it wouldn't be anything special, but it would basically create different kind of teams who would not be famous for a macro game, but they could as well be great at of strategizing and fitting in the perfect kind of champions, where you basically are not just copying each other, and the meta is so set in stone, and it's so boring looking at, because you know that what they're gonna play. So I would for spectators kind of view, it would be much more enjoyable, especially in the draft, which I think at the moment is just boring, really boring, unless you're Monte Cristo. But it's a very necessary part, and I would think it would bring in a new aspect of coaching, and not just an analyst who's good at analyzing how to do the macro game, but you would then again also have the kind of team who are great at mixing up compositions, where right now you can't really do anything extraordinary, and it would basically also mean that the teams you're playing, that they would have to be more adaptable and have to learn how to do how to cope with new comps coming on the scene right in front of them, and it would be much more enjoyable, and would probably also get the viewership up a bit. But the dilemma with this kind of thinking is, of course, that the meta would go out of line, and there would be too great a gap. And how would you sort out? How would you sort out how the pros are gonna play on their own little server with their own specific patch changes only to their accounts? You could, for once, either make it like challenger, not challenger. You could also do it that way. If you reach challenger or above, or if you reach a challenger team, that's a completely different story, of course, from reaching challengers on solo queue or dynamic queue, as it's called. That's two different things. But if you reached a challenger team, because I know they give out special accounts, at least for the pros, the pro scene, from like LCS team, these accounts could have, like, I don't know, a modified version of the patches, where you have it specially suited for the pros. You could do that as well with the challenger team, and then there would be, of course, there could be a great gap between challenger and the challenger teams, but then again, it needs to happen somewhere if you want it that way, at least if I want it that way. So I think either you make it like, I don't know how you would do it. I would personally think either you do that, or people could you could have these two separate systems, and you could sign basically up for it. You have to be like at least diamond something, or masters or something, and then you can queue up under with the special not limitations, but with this special pro scene kind of patch system, while the others can't. And I think it would be fair, because at least then again, you could also make just two separate systems, where you choose if you want to play on their patch or you want to play on this patch. And of course, the two patches can't differ too much from each other. It can't be too far away from each other. The gap must not be too wide. So I think it is possible if you want to. I know it's gonna be a little a little struggle implementing it, but I think it would be great for the pro scene, and it would develop a more strategy, a greater strategic element to this kind of approach to the drafts, and to make the teams more unique in their draft choices and their play, that they would make more distinct the way they're playing. And I think you could also say in a way you could be more proud of your team if they can pull off certain comps which others can't, which I think is with special champions. I think that would be much more enjoyable to watch, because I like diversity in champion select. But yeah, either you make it like a certain requirement before you can enter the realm of the patch systems where you actively join it, or from the start on, all the way from the button, when you queue up for the first time, you have a choice between these two. And I think it would be plausible to pull off, and I think it would be much more beneficiary for the pro scene, and it would make the patching much easier for the game designers and the balance changes to be more precise in what they want to do before the big cups or the big tournaments, MSI and Worlds. I think it's doable, and so yeah, that's basically the video in itself. I think it needs to be along with the testing grounds where you can basically test the champions after what is called like in Counter-Strike, where you can make your own little what is it called? Well, yeah, so you could test all the new mechanics and such on a not a closed server, your own little playing ground server, in-game server, where you can test all kind of things with the champions. So you could, so at least also the pro teams can test out certain things and set up scenarios and such. I have forgotten what it's called, but just some that needs to happen. I think the test system, the patch system here, needs to be brought along because it's at the moment this kind of mass patch changes is not functional. It's not flexible enough for this, because it is two different games, the pro scene and the not pro scene, and it's just an illusion that you can have the same patch running on both, and everybody feeling at least it's so hard to pull off, with everybody feeling satisfied, and with the game designers and balance changes feeling satisfied with what is going on, and it's much more easy and clear to see, and it's easier to change as well if it's completely out of line. It's much more easy to change and doing small hot fixes, which is necessary at least for the pro scene. So I think it would be very beneficial for the pro scene, and I think you can make out a way to make this happen. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my others on my channel under my playlist called Rant in English. Ciao.